can proceed. Thanks, Jan. Carry on.
All right, perfect. Yeah, look, when it comes to 11 outcomes, what I find in my experience, outcome number 1, 2, and 3 is extremely difficult to illustrate, and sometimes, most of the times, people fall short and it gets thrown back. Then outcome number 5, when it comes to communication, just remember that gets critiqued, for the lack of a better word, during your presentation that you do at ECSA. And then one that I find recently that people leave out and they don't address properly is outcome number 8. So lots of stuff gets sent back and said, listen, we don't see you've really covered outcome number 8. Hence, let's talk about it again. The topics that we're going to handle today, or the outline, we're going to have a look at the 11 outcomes again. Whenever I do this presentation, and I do it to WSP Consulting and a few others, but the main thing here, I drill those 11 outcomes into these people every single time. Every time we go there, we go through the 11 outcomes. And stuff needs to be so ingrained into you that you never ever forget them. I think that, you know, when you get older, when your wife or girlfriend will wake you up, or boyfriend, in the middle of the night and say, what's 11 outcomes? You can run through them without a problem. We're going to look at Group D outcomes, the competency indicators. Now, this is important. This is ECSA stuff. Okay? We're going to look at the competency in the range statement and how to demonstrate the outcome, and then how this outcome will be assessed by ECSA. We're going to look at the code of conduct, but first I want to touch a little bit on the history. Where does it come from? Because I bet you know, if I ask anyone from you, where does this come from? Is there anyone that can actually tell me exactly how did it start? Where did it start? What was the story behind it? And in which date was this sort of formalized? In America, by the way. All right, but we're going to address it. Then we're going to look at the code of conduct properly, and then how to translate this into your training and experience reports. Here we go. Outcome number 1, 2, and 3, extremely important. Define, investigate, and analyze. Design or develop solutions for complex, Boolean, well-defined problems. Then comprehend and apply the knowledge that you've gained during this time. How do you apply it? How do you do it properly? Then enforce, manage part of one or more of your engineering activities. That is why you go to site and we get exposed to contractors, get exposed to the environment, and you learn a lot of stuff, because then now you start managing these engineering activities. And number 4 and 5 is grouped together, and the reason for that is we can't manage without communicating. Try that and let's see what happens. So communication is extremely important. Don't communicate well, everything falls flat. 6 and 7 also linked together, can't miss the 2. You have to recognize and address reasonable, foreseeable, social, cultural, and environmental. So don't go and kill people, don't go and kill the environment, don't do that kind of stuff. ECSA, and nobody likes that. So there's regulations, there's requirements, there's health and safety. So that's outcome number 7. You need to know that stuff, man. Outcome number 8 is conduct engineering activities ethically. We're not talking here about corruption and crime specifically. We're talking about engineering activities and the ethics around that, which also includes corruption, stealing, all that beautiful stuff. Then 9 goes with 10. 9 goes with 8, and 10 goes with 9. So exercise sound judgment, and after you've now exercised your sound judgment, and then you take responsibilities for the actions that you do. And 11 is then obviously your IPD, initial professional development, the continual professional development. Here's an illustration of the 11 outcomes, how they group. Fundamentals in the middle, 1, 2, and 3. 4 and 5, you communicate and manage. Your group C is your regulations and your impact on people and the environment. And then the one we're going to address today is 8. That's in Group D. Those 3 are grouped together: ethical, judgment, and responsibility. And then 11 sits on its own with lifelong learning. Okay. If you can memorize this picture, then you'll do extremely well. Right. Now, let's see what ECSA has to say about the competency indicators. A demonstration of sensitivity to ethical issues and the adoption of systematic approach to resolving these issues is expected and typified by the following. Sorry, what? It says here you need to demonstrate the sensitivity, which means you need to be sensitive to these issues. And so that means one thing: can you identify these ethical issues? And if you identify them, do you have a system to address them? And if you can address them, how do you derive to a solution? And can you take responsibility for that solution? That's what that sentence says. It says in these beautiful words, but if you start unpacking these things, then it starts making sense. So what is the indicator here? There you go, ECSA's Code of Conduct. That's your indicator. Confirmation of operations that are compliant with ECSA's Code of Conduct. So don't break the Code of Conduct, because then you're not behaving ethically. And demonstration of how ethical problems are affected parties. And here's identification again. Identify how the best solution to resolve these problems are selected. So it's your responsibility to demonstrate this, and to demonstrate how you identify it, and demonstrate how you came to that specific solution, right? So if you look at these three outcomes in Group D, it means you need to operate on level E, at least, right? But not at least, for at least a year. As soon as managerial comes into play, right? That means you've got a team, there's risks involved, there's all kinds of stuff in play, which means you need to be in a higher position than on ground level. You're not exempt from this outcome. It just means you're in a bit of a higher position, all right? So just bear that in mind. Now, ECSA's range statement pertains to this. Comprehension and application of professional ethics, responsibility, and norms. I'm going to skip everything and go to limits of competence. How many times have you heard this? And I think we can't drill it in enough. You shall know your limitations. Do not go and do stuff that you're not competent for. Do not go and practice and pretend you're a structural engineer when you're actually not. So don't go and do that stuff. So it's basically what it says. A professional engineer must be capable. Do you see the trend here? It plays over and over and over again. Detecting, analyzing, and handling ethical dilemmas and problems, right? ECSA goes as far to say this is a non-negotiable. So therefore, you need to address this, and you need to illustrate it by hook or by crook. And I've put 1, 2, 3 in there. So whenever you get into a situation, it's really a DAR situation. What does DAR stand for? Detecting, analyzing, and handling. So now you will never forget it again. So whenever you're in a situation, you go like, well, how do I address this outcome again? DAR, detect it, analyze it, and handle it. Good. But what does this actually mean? Well, it means simple. You must be able to know what is an ethical dilemma. You guys know what's an ethical goals. Do you know what's an ethical dilemma? Right? And what is the consequences of an ethical dilemma? Don't worry, we'll get to it. And you must be able to handle any ethical problems that might arise during your practice as a candidate or as an engineer. Then know your limitations. Don't go and do weird and wonderful stuff, and don't go and sell yourself above what you can really do, right? Then on the softer, which is actually harder issues, your behavior within the professional team. Don't go and, as they say in Afrikaans, bliksem the contractor or the architect. Play nice. Don't go and do those kind of stuff. Don't swear. Don't use bad language or anything like that. It is not just corruption. It is much, much more. And you need to know that, right? And know what's appropriate and what is not appropriate. Good. Now, how do I demonstrate this outcome? Right. Simple thing. One line from ECSA. Conduct engineering activities ethically. Alrighty, so what does that now mean? Well, baseline of ethical behaviors, refer to the Code of Conduct, and you'll get sufficient information there to make sure that you do what you have to do and do it on time, right, and in an ethical way. So the conduct, we're going to go through it, covers the practical aspect, it covers integrity, it looks at the protection of the public, it looks at protection of the environment, it looks at dignity of the profession, all of those kind of things. Now, we talk about dignity. Oh, shucks.
We've lost you.
Am I back?
Okay, we can hear you again.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I've just got a message there. My what's name is unstable. It doesn't say I'm unstable. It just says, okay, I'm going to do this. Maybe that will help. Okay, so now if you look at this, right, you need to practice ethically. Integrity is there, environment is there, dignity is there, public's involved. All of these aspects sits there. Now, can you imagine what kind of damage does a CEO of ECSA make when they get found guilty? Well, I think it's guilty on nine different charges of unethical behavior and all of that stuff that goes with it. What does it do to the industry? What does it do to the reputation of engineers? Right? You know, when I hear these things, it drives me insane. So here you have these really iconic figures, and they go and do stuff like this. It tarnishes the profession and the professionalism of this industry hectically. So please, I beg you, when you ever get into that role, don't go and do that. You know, no, man. You know, really. All right. So apart from the fact that the code of conduct talks to all of these aspects, there's also an administrative matter that gets dealt with it in it. And you need to know that, because the administrative stuff has also got procedures that need to be understood so that you don't get caught with your pants down, if they say. Now, how would this outcome be assessed? An applicant who's capable of handling ethics or ethical issues adopts. You see, you're lucky, because if you know what's going forward, then you have got systems and systematic approaches that you can use to solve these problems, which will keep you out of the hot water. So here we go again, the identification and the central ethical problem. So you must be able to identify the ethical problem, identify the affected parties in the search for possible solutions. And you can literally take these words and you can put it onto your training and experience report, and you'll be fine, because you've identified it. You've shown what's the ethical problem. You've shown the affected parties. You looked at possible solutions, and you say why. Why did you use that solution? Can you prove it? Can you justify it? There's your solution. One time, you do that and you sort it. Right, you need to know that you're not in silos. The architects, the engineers, the QSs, the project managers, all of them have got a code of conduct. And you can look at it. The architects have got a Professions Act. So does all the rest, even the project managers. Also, not even, but they've also got one. So you can look it up. So every profession has got one. Right, let's have a quick history lesson on ethics. So you might think, so where did this ethics start? It must have started somewhere. You didn't get a code of conduct that boom, there it was. And now you go like, okay, but why? Where did it come from? Why do I need to be controlled? Why does it even exist? Well, here's a short history for you. The first High Bridge collapsed in 1879. At least 60 people were killed. Sorry, what? Yeah, 60 people, right? That is more than double what's on this call. One time gone. So that's now it started going like, okay, yeah, that's sad, but you know, nothing really happens, because at that point in time, ethical behavior was your personal thing. Nobody governs you. You decide how ethical you're going to be and what you're going to do. And the closest you could get to ethical issues might be when you're employed by a big corporation, where you're a technologist doing these kind of works. So you weren't governed, or the engineers weren't governed at all. So it was literally a personal thing. Right, then in the 19th, 20th century, that's, if you can see at the bottom, that was the molasses disaster in Boston. Then the United States started going, hang on a second, we need to do something here. We can't let these stuff happen. You know, people get killed, buildings collapse. That's not good. And remember, the first priority of any government is to look after the health and safety of the people. So this starts happening, then they went like, no. We seriously need to look at it. So in the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, there'd been a series of significant failures, especially structural failures, breach failures. Astubala, I believe is the right pronunciation, River Railroad disaster. I think at that point 500 people were injured and 70 people died. The Thai bridge disaster, the Quebec bridge collapse in 1907. So these are all now happening, and it's now having a profound effect on the engineering fraternity, because now people are pointing fingers and saying, hang on a second, there's some serious shortcomings here. These people calling themselves professional engineers are not competent. They're killing people. They're doing all of the wonderful stuff. We need to do something. We seriously need to. There again, with the Boston Molasses disaster in 1990, that was sort of, okay, now we had enough. And that is where the Americans decided we're going to have a formal accreditation process in place, where we're going to register professional, or no, sorry, at that stage, licensing professional engineers. And to become a professional one, and to give you a license to practice, you need to meet certain outcomes or certain requirements, which is both academia or educational experience, and then you will be tested on that as well. So that's how we got to that one. There I could have a look at the Dixon, the Trisdale Bridge collapse. That was on the 4th of May, 1873. Interesting thing, what contributed to this in 1950, now remember 1940, 41, 42, 43, up to 44, that was the Second World War. And we all know what the Germans did. So the Germans also stood up to the plate and said, okay, guys, we're not going to tolerate this. So they create the thing called the Confessions of Engineers, which basically say we're not going to do the stuff that we did in the past. We're not going to build these massive places where we can gas people or do any of that stuff. So they're taking responsibility for it, and they govern the engineers. So the Germans took up to the place and they said, okay, cool. This all in 1950, eh? So over the following decades, most of the American states, especially Canada was extremely active in this. They started requiring engineers to be licensed. Now, remember, we're talking about license, not registration yet. We will get to that one. There's a Quebec bridge failure. So in these requirements to become professional, they started looking at risk of life, health, property, public welfare, and the environment. So those were the key issues that was addressed. Then from there on, it just became stronger and stronger and became legislation, and it sort of spilled over into other countries, including South Africa. I think the nail in the coffin where this was dropped properly is when William Lemessurier proposed, or basically discovered, the poor design that was done due to unethical behavior, and use that as an example to say, okay, enough now. Let's draft something that will stop this from happening. So therefore, in 1946, the Americans drafted something called the Canons of Ethical Behavior for Engineers. That was sort of the rule, and if you don't abide by it, then you sort of will be scrapped from the roster system at that stage. Just to give you some idea, there were 500 advisors on this board that drafted the ethical, the document on ethical. 500 people, my word, to draft one document. There's another example of a bridge collapse. Here on the left is that railway one that I was talking about. So during this process, the engineers and others became more clever, and now suddenly the limited document that was produced suddenly find these weird things coming out, like offshoring, sustainable development, and environmental issues that came to the fore, and that needed to be incorporated again. Right. So long story short, there you have it. Started way back already, and there's actually some of the countries that even before the 1950s had already drafted something like this. I really like this one. You can sort of see the answers there, but what is the difference between ethics, values, and morals? Just think for a second. What's the difference between ethics, values, and morals? Okay, let's first look at ethics and values. I found this fascinating. So what's the meaning between the two? So ethics refer to the guidelines for conduct, right? So it's guidelines for conduct. and addresses the question about mortality. So, what's right, what's wrong. Values is no different story. Values is defined as principles and ideas that helps them in making judgment of what is more important. Values pertains to you. I decide what is important to me. Ethics is a system that tells the bigger group what is acceptable and what is not. So, what are they? Ethics is a system of moral principles. Values is a stimuli for thinking. Okay? Consistency, with in other words, ethics is uniform. All of us need to be ethical. Values, my values, can differ from yours, can differ from all the others. So it's a personal thing, right? So what is it? What's the tells of it? Ethics, it's what is morally correct and incorrect in a given situation, of course, right? And that's why you've got a code of conduct. It's an ethical thing. So from a value point of view, that's what we do or achieve. What do I want to achieve? That's my value system. What do I want to do? It's my value system. It could be unethical, but that's what I value, right? So what does it determine? Extent of rightness and wrongness of our option. And your values? Well, the level of importance, personal. So what does it do? The one constrains you with, now, do not do that, do that. Do not do that, do that. Whereas values motivates you. I want to be APR Inch by that date. That's not your ethics, that is your value. That's what you want to achieve. So it motivates you. Now let's look at the difference between morals and ethics. Okay, so morals, what's morals? Morals are the beliefs of the individual or a group as to what is right and wrong. Easiest way to explain this to you, look at the Christians, look at the Muslims, look at the Satanists, look at all of these different groups. They will decide what is right and what is wrong. That is their moral compass, right? We know now ethics are the guiding principles which help the individual or a group to decide what's right or wrong. So from a moral point of view, what is it? Well, that's general principles set by a group or a belief or a cult or a whatever. Okay, now ethics again is a response to a specific situation. Okay, so the root word morals, the root word is mos, which means custom, whereas ethics is ethikos, which means character. So how is it governed? The morals is governed by society and culture, right? And you can look at the different cultures in South Africa from, the English, the Zulas and the Xhosas. Whereas ethics are individual or legal and professional norms. So morals deals with principles of right and wrong. Ethics deals with right and wrong according to a conduct. Applicability in business. Do you find morals in business? Oh, no, definitely not. Ethics? Oh, yes, you do. Okay. So consistency, morals may differ from society to society and culture to culture, whereas ethics is generally uniform. What it says in South Africa, do not kill people through bad designs. You'll find that in America, you'll find it in Australia, you'll find it all over. So ethics consists of personal ethics, professional ethics, and common ethics. And there's a subject called engineering ethics, which means there's a group of very clever people that sits around the table and say, okay, this is the ethical behavior, these people or these environments need to be protected, and so they come up with that. Here's another one that you need to understand from an ethics point of view is ethics, ethical behavior, ethical reasoning, ethical systems, and what's unethical and non-ethical considerations. Ethics, we know now this. That is the process of determining right from wrong. We all know it, we're happiness with that. But now what's ethical behavior? Well, that's a behavior that conforms to these ethics, right? And ethical reasoning, well, that's a process of sorting out the principles. And if you sorted out the principles, you obviously create a specific formula, and that formula becomes your system. So unethical means that you break these rules, you break these systems, and you do it voluntarily. Now, non-ethical considerations. Man, hear me, this is the important one. I'm going to ask you this. If you're hungry, no, I mean hungry, you've got no food, man, you're going to die. Your family's going to die, you're going to die, right? And you're in a situation where you know, okay, I might be able to steal a bread from somewhere. Are you going to steal it? Well, yeah, of course you're going to steal it. So if you need to survive, you're going to break your ethics. You're going to break ethical issues as well. Mate, there's love. How many people have killed people out of love or jealousy, for that matter, right? So be very careful. One must be not judging. First find out what is the situation, right? Ethical dilemma, there you go. There's a train, there's 5 people, there's one person. Who are you going to kill, 5 or 1? Well, you're going to kill someone, so you might as well just kill 1. But you're still killing somebody, and that's the ethical dilemma. It's the simplest way of putting it. Okay, and it happens in engineering as well. Are you going to kill a small forest or a whole forest? But you need to do development, so what's the choice there? Right, a quick one, end-based, it just means that if ethical is end-based, it means it is for the greater good and for the greater number. So that's the focus point. It's the end result. We focus on the end. We don't care or give a shit about anything in between. Rules-based, it means stick to the rules, you're fine. We don't care what the outcome is, stick to the rules and you'll be 100% fine. And then you've got care-based. Now, care-based is do unto others as you would like to have done unto yourself. Those are the various philosophies around it. The ethics from ECSA talks to all 3 of those ones, right? Here's your outcome, step number 1, analyze the consequences. Step 2, outcome number 9, analyze the actions. And step number 3, outcome 10, make a decision and make sure that the decision is correct. Right, welcome to ECSA's Code of Conduct. Check out the Code of Conduct approved by ECSA Council on the 16th of March 2017. That's just the other day, right? So, reasonably new and been taken very seriously. Okay, so it's been gazetted. Now, the people that can get confused between this licensing, registration, and specialized lists. Licensing just means that licensing can be done by a statutory or a non-statutory body, right? To give you an example, that's like the plumbers, right? So they restrict some work, they allow some work, they do all of these kind of stuff. And if you're licensed, then you can practice. But if you're licensed, and I'm not licensed as a plumber, I can also do that work that is licensed. So license is, you should use these people, that's the right thing to do. But if you're unlicensed or not licensed, you can also do it. That's the difference between licensing and registration. Registration is the serious stuff. That is regulations, that's rules, that's ECSA, that is, comes from the government, it's gazetted, it is you sell, that is, if you don't, then we're going to send you to prison. This is the serious stuff, right? So you register as a professional engineer or technologist or technician. So that's the deal with it. And that's important to know. And that's where work reservation or identification of work and all of that comes in. Now, specialized lists, those are people that got special skills like your fire engineers and a few others, lift inspectors. So it is a non-statutory voluntary list of professionals that can actually do the work and they can do it properly. So it's interesting, it's usually your trades to differentiate between the various ones. Okay, now prohibits and permission. So what the Act does, it prohibits a person from who is not registered in a category to practice in that category. But it permits a person who are registered to do that. Okay, so what it means is if you're a candidate, you can't consult. You're not registered as a professional. Although you're registered as a candidate in that category, you can't practice because you're a candidate. Or you can't consult, sorry, not practice. You can't consult, right? And then also, if you're not registered, then you're not allowed to use you're not allowed to do any engineering work. Okay, so it's important to note that. And this is an interesting one. Supervision and control of a registered person. The person signing off takes responsibility for it. So say, for instance, I've got 20 years experience and you've got 10 years experience and you're professionally registered and I'm not. And I come to you and I say, look, I've got no experience and you have, put this into the thing and then you sign it off. If something goes wrong, they're not going to point a finger at me, they're going to point a finger at you and they're going to take you to court. They're not going to take me to court. Because you're the registered person, you take accountability for that. To unpack the rules of conduct, you can memorize it by this acronym, DPICT. It just means dignity of the profession, the environment, public interest, integrity, and competency, right? And always think about how you're going to translate this into your training and experience report. Let's look at competency, registered person. Must always take due care and skill and diligence. With in other words, If you're going to be an engineer and you're going to do your work, then do it properly, right? Important, it also says, don't go and do other weird and wonderful stuff. If you're educated and trained and registered as a professional engineer, then do that work. Don't go and do something different. Don't go and operate as a water engineer in your structural, right? So that's important. If we go to look at the public interest, registered persons must give priority to health and safety of interested. Well, this is actually outcome number 7. The regulations and rules look after the health and safety of people. So you'll see that the code of conduct talks to a lot of the outcomes as we know them. If you start advising clients and employers and all of them, and they don't take your advice, then you need to report it to ECSA, especially if there's going to be a failure. We know of cases where the client went and said to an engineer, look, there's too many. I actually know this case and I know the developer. Said there's too many columns under my building. It takes parking space and I'm not happy with it and it costs too much. And said, take some of them out, please, because I'm not happy with it. The engineer said, no, there's a risk that it might collapse. He said, Mike, then it never collapses, so please do it. And he did it, and the building did collapse, and the engineer was sent to jail. So just don't do that. Okay, environment, we know how important the environmental issues are becoming now. So it's your responsibility to minimize that first impact on the environment, and then strive to ensure that you meet all the standards, requirements, developmental needs, and anything that goes with it. And if you're going to compromise anything, stay away from it. So, dignity of the profession, I spoke about it. You know, you're a professional. If you want to go and do all of that kind of stuff, you're going to tarnish the profession. Unfortunately, there are people that's doing that and really in your face, like the CEO of ECSA, you know, really seriously. So don't go and tarnish the profession. You're also not allowed to knowingly injure the profession. The profession's reputation. So if you're going to go into a meeting, know how to act, know what to do it right. Don't go shout and scream and swear at the other professionals in the team, right? And also stay away from supplement. Supplement just means replacing a person that doesn't agree to what you're saying or moving them around so that you can get your way. So don't do that. This is an interesting one. You may not advertise their professional services in misleading and exaggerated manner. So don't go and sell yourself, but don't sell yourself in such a way that it's on the borderline of being false. Interesting enough, in the 60s, 70s, and I think early 80s, the engineers were not allowed to do any marketing or promoting their professional services. Can you actually believe it? Then also you may not this is an interesting one. You're not allowed to review the work carried out by other professionals. Unless is important, because if you move in your career and you become a specialist, then you might encounter this. So where the review is carried out for a different client, then you're allowed to, or that the registered person that's worked on it knows that you're actually going to review them. The third one is when you've got writing that that person has not been working on that process or been terminated, or if there's a dispute, then you're allowed to. And if it's just a routine, then you're also allowed to. Integrity, I'm rushing through this because it's, it's not the most exciting topic. However, at least you now know, and when you do your interview, you can say, you did this specific outcomes training with IPED on that date, and you can put that in your IPD, or initial professional development. Once again, registered integrity means, act properly with integrity, fidelity, and honesty. Do not carry out responsibilities for stuff that you're not competent to do. That's going to harm yourself, the people around you, the company, all of those factors. That's what it means there. Must not engage in act of dishonesty, corruption. This is, interesting enough, the only part in this whole document that directly talks to corruption and bribery. So it must come out somewhere. And unfortunately, that is the norm in South Africa. It seems like it's happening all over the place. If I'm wrong, please, tell me that I'm wrong and prove me wrong. But that's what I've picked up in my experience. So you must disclose to the employers and clients or prospective employers or the clients in writing if any interests whatsoever, financial or otherwise, which they may have in any business undertaking. What it just says here, if you've got a side hustle, right, and you're making money from it, then you should disclose this. You can't hide it away. If there's royalties involved, benefits, I'm giving my clients, gold bars to secure more work, then, it needs to be open and transparent. You may also not transfer your indemnity insurance cover or do any of those dodgy things, right? So once again, if you financially benefit from working on a project, side hustles, anything like that, get permission, get it sorted out. Don't go and do it in the dark because you will get caught. It happens all the time. Be careful of commissions. Be careful of giving gifts to your clients. Be careful of all of those kind of things. Be careful of conflict of interest. You need to stay away from that. You can't do this misrepresentation of your skills or your academic skills. You can't say you're an engineer if you're a technologist and vice versa. So be careful of that. It says, be honest, objective, and based on facts. Don't speculate. Do the facts. Very important. You're also not allowed to go and bribe your clients so that they will give you work or give them kickbacks or any of those kind of stuff. That's also not correct. Also, when you want to open your mouth and you want to give advice and guidance, also make sure that it's correct and that you cannot be nailed or sued or anything of that matter. So be cognizant of that. This is a POPI Act. You can't go and share confidential information with other people. It's also unethical. Now, if you should unfortunately become insolvent and hope it never happens to anybody, then you need to let the council know of what happened. Was it an accident, incompetence? You need to disclose this, right? And you must also immediately let the council know if you should be arrested, removed from office, or we've got serious responsibilities or finances involved. So immediately, if something happens and there's fraud involved or anything like that, you have to let ECSA know. Remember I said there's administrative duties as well. So here's the administrative side of things. You must keep your documentation, your drawings, any correspondence, all of that for at least 10 years. So be careful if you destroy stuff. I think for engineers, you're liable for your designs even after you died. So if you're dead, then they're going to dig you up and say, please come and report back on this failure because you did the design for it. So be careful of that one. So have your contracts, have everything in order. Payments, make sure everything is done properly. There's a record and an audit trail, so have that in place. So issues may information prepared, blah, blah, unless the information be okay. This is important to note that you need to have the right organizations, numbers, names on your drawings. You need to have the contact persons. You need to have all of those kind of things in place, the quality management, the authorities, the authorized person, the date that drawings were prepared. All of those fundamental info should be on that. This is a bit dated for me because all of your electronic systems do this already. I have to question the next one. Electronic signatures are now accepted in the environment. So here it says it doesn't, but it's sort of stand up in court now. You have to adhere to the various standards. That's why they're there. So if you're going to work in overseas or in Africa or one of those places, you need to be fully aware of those rules and regulations and acquaint yourself with them and their laws and bylaws. That's why you've got the FIDI contract documents. They were designed for engineers working in Africa. So also you must supervise and take responsibility for work carried out by this, and this includes keeping a record of the candidates that you train and the associated activities that goes with it. Versus you, okay, no, that's fine. Persons other than a person registered as a candidate in terms, it just basically says if you're a candidate, you cannot practice, you cannot sign off. And if a person is professionally registered, then you need to take responsibility for signing off. So you can't pretend that that you didn't. So you can't say, well, I assumed it was correct because that person did the work and he's got more experience than I have. You can't say that. That's not how it works. Then, interestingly, you have to let the council know without delay if your address have changed, and then at least you got this one that is 30-day response to correspondence received from clients, colleagues, and council as far as related to work or proceedings in terms of these rules. So it's a bit of a loose one. I don't know who abides by the 30 days. When does the 30-day rule kicks in? So just remember it is there so that you don't fall into that trap. Just a soft issue here. If you think ethics is just this what we've gone through, well, it includes the relationship with your clients, consultants, competitors, and contractors. It talks to legal compliance by you, the clients, the contractors, and everybody involved. Conflict of interest, bribery and kickbacks, which might include gifts, meals, services, all of those. How do you treat your confidentiality and information related to that? The consideration of the employer's assets, in other words, you know, be careful that you don't damage, destroy, steal, or do any of those weird things. And then also, if you're moonlighting, get the right permissions, do all of that. And if the company says no, it's no, don't go and do it behind their back. It is a problem. Right, there's just a quick one on the ethics, rule of conduct, rule of regulations, your values, research, moral principles, ethical principles, all of those are ethics. So when you thought ethics is one thing, I think again. Now the process flow for you is the easiest way to sort this out, right? You start with recognizing that there is actually an ethical issue. Then you need to understand the facts of the situation. You need to look at the options at hand, understand the consequences of what's happening, make a decision, act on the decision, and then, well, it says reflect, but it just means that you check that. Yes, and I don't want to labor this too much, but the NIE, National Institute for Engineering Ethics, they've drafted this thing where there's 9 bullet points that they believe one must put up on your office wall or somewhere so everybody can see it. It just basically says practice ethical behavior, actively beware of new ethic or new programs pertaining to that, define the ethical problem when it arises, formulate the alternatives, evaluate the alternatives, seek additional assistance. That's where your mentoring, supervising comes in. Choose the best ethical alternative, implement the best one, and monitor what happens with it. On the right-hand side, this is now how NEE compares with ECSA. Same story. So it's just identify, check what's happening, who's going to be affected, what are the possible solutions, choose the best solution, implement the best solution, take responsibility for it. So that over and over again. Quick one, how do you translate this onto your training and experience report? We've gone through this already, as restating what I've been saying. Here's an example for the engineers, but I put the engineers in here so you can see there's not a massive difference between what technologists and engineers need to do. Here's an example from a successful registered person. From an early stage in my career, I realized the importance of carrying out my duties responsibly and ethically. I familiarized myself with the ECSA rules. See, there we go. Familiarize myself with the ECSA rules of the conduct, document and regularly press it on to the heart of my fellow team members to approach the projects we work on with honesty and integrity. Nice little statement. There you go. Okay, this person's gone through the rules. Here's another example through communication and interaction with the bidders for the project. I did encounter some ethical issues from the various parties during the bidding process when a contractor would request information pertaining to the project requirements. I had to make my response visible to all bidding parties, not just to him. I also avoided unethical requests for pricing budget for the project, especially knowing that this would give unfair advantage to a particular bidder. Right, nice little statement in your face, you can't ignore it. So, for the technologist, right, I'm going to quickly read this. Confirm that you are conversant with the rules of conduct of a registered person. It's a code of conduct, we just gone through it, so you should know that now. And that you operate under these rules as a technologist by fulfilling the objectives under clause 1 of the document and comply with the rules of conduct. So, what does it say in the first one? Competency. That you discharge your duties within your training and experience in terms of norms of the profession. It just means if you're registered and you're competent in one sphere, stay there. Don't go and do other stuff unless you train for it. Integrity, we've labored that one enough. Practicing honesty and fidelity. Public interest, that's a story. Don't go damage the public, the environment, the health and safety of people or any of that kind of stuff. Don't, be reckless and poison the water by not thinking of everything. And then dignity of the profession. I think I've made that point quite clear that, let's build it up. Engineers and professional engineers are unique. It's like doctors, it's like all of them. Jeepers, come, let's not get a bad rep on this, please, man. Here's an example of a successful application on my TER. I am fortunate that my employer shares my high regards for ethic, compliance, and adherence to international anti-bribery laws. It is compulsory for all, let's call it WSP employees to complete the annual online code of conduct in ethics plus compliance and global anti-bribery training modules. So the modules consist of theory, videos, examples, and knowledge assessment at the end, which is a minimum pass rate. So it just says here our company basically looks after us, make sure that we do proper training and that we know what's going on from that point of view. Right, for the technicians, here's the 2 examples. I carry out my duty honestly and with integrity, ensuring that all certified payments claims were correctly measured by me and the contractor. I did not engage in any activities which would give rise to conflict of interest to either the client or my employer, WSP Engineering, clause 3.2. Brilliant example. The last one, I ensured that at all times during construction, the project was carried out according to the requirements of the construction regulations issued under the OSHA Act. The site was closed off to the public and signs erected to inform the public of the construction works being carried out, and that's clause 3.3. Brilliant, beautiful examples that will cover you and make sure that you can illustrate this outcome properly. All right, there we go. Johan, any questions from anybody?
Yeah, let's see. Let's hear what the guys say. I think it's now very clear what you can answer and in the ethics.
Yeah, look, it's not the most exciting topic, so but you have to do it. You can't get away from it.
Yeah, and the fact is that you have to do it, but you can answer. You can ask any question on anything. We'll try and answer. I see Chris has also joined us. I see Tom has also joined us. So we've got a lot of people here that know all the answers to the questions and can answer in an ethical way.
Yeah, Johan, thank you for that one.
There's someone with a hand. Wabisi? You're welcome. You can ask.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes, I want to find out if in the process of registration and then my application for registration was being put on abeyance, but the problem now is in that period where I need to resubmit my engineering report, there is no one registered who can be my referee in the company that I'm working for. So can I still use the referee that I used in my previous report, but even if I'm no longer working for the company that I was working for when I wrote my engineering report?
Well, you've now gone beyond that original report. So with other words, it means you had to work somewhere for someone. And if you didn't have anybody there, did you look for anybody outside the company that actually could mentor you or could support you in this?
Okay, all right. No, I get this. Okay, thank you.
Because Chris, what do you do? Because you know you don't have somebody, so you could. Yeah,
Okay,
please
Let me
do.
come in there.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
basically what happens there is that period of where you were put in abeyance. Can everybody hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that period that you were put in abeyance, your previous referees do count, but your referee that you were training under for that period of where you were abeyance in the 12 months must put a report, even if they are unregistered, but they must show that you did. Your referee is there to do, your report that you got to do is, excuse me, your additional report that you have to put is for your work that you did. Your supervisor signs it off. Your referees, you don't have to put in a new one because they still count within that period. And then you put in your new engineering report. I'll tell you which one it is now. Because that you supplement your report, your summary. So you will be supplementing your form B2.2 TES. Then you will also be doing your report, your form B2 your TER. I mean your B421 TER. You'll have to supplement. You have to just extend it because that's what we're looking at there. And in your engineering report, you have to submit completely. So don't make the mistake of just saying, this is your engineering report, you just put it in again without doing any changes and showing that you've been trained in those areas where you're shortcoming. Okay, does that answer your question? Hello? Has he run away?
Oh, he's muted. Wabisi? Are you happy with the answer?
Oh, yes, thank you so much. No, sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much. No, I'm happy with the answer.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Sejasela? Unmute. On now.
Thank you. Can I ask a question? In one of the slides, we were talking about relationships, bribery, and kickbacks. Under that, we see items such as gifts and meals. Obviously, those are a norm. In construction, you might be involved or invited to and function, such stuff. So how do you really identify? Yeah.
I'll answer that quickly. Basically what you do, if it's not money involved, it's not big gifts. If it is, You notify the people that you work with, you notify your supervisor, you notify the company you work for, and you tell them, I've been given this gift. Because usually in Christmas, you do get like a gifts to say, no, you did well, or you get a spoon, or you get some alcohol, or you get whatever, or it's your birthday, they give you a party and so forth. You notify everybody and you let them understand. And you also let this person understand it's not a bribe. It's only a gift. But be careful how you handle it too. If they give you money, you refuse straight out. If it's a very expensive gift, you tell them, I cannot take it. But usually over the festive season, the contractors, if you're working for consultants, the contractors do give you gifts. I know for the government departments, they're not allowed to even accept those at all. So you just handle it with care. Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, obviously, it sounded like a threat.
Your pardon?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm saying it sounded like a threat. Thank you very much for explaining it.
Yeah. So just be careful you use your judgment on that. But if it's money in that, you refuse to take it and that. Okay. But if it is something that you do and they want you to influence you to say, no, I'll give you this or I'll give you this, but do that and that and that for me, you refuse and you report it to your superior. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it?
Was he?
Thank you, sir. Greetings to everybody. I just wanted to find out, it's just that now I forgot that outcome, but I was speaking to some of my friends about, there's this outcome that speaks about environment, culture, combined. Now, when we were speaking, the outcome that you say, we find out, you said that you needed to answer all of it in your answering when they ask you about culture, environment, how did you go about in all of that? Now, I wanted to find out if a project that I've done, or mainly the projects that I've done, doesn't have culture. I think that's where I'm a bit confused, the culture part, because now I tend to think of the cultures that you have, your Zulu culture or whatever, how to go about with that aspect, because I understand the environment part. I've dealt with that area, but now it's the culture part that needs to be involved that I'm not so clued up how to answer it. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so you're talking about outcome number 6, so 6.1. Now, I want to just ask you one question. Where are you working? What type of work are you doing?
So I do basically retaining walls, design inspections of the design of sites. Sometimes I do site investigation before the project starts.
Okay, so you're working in an urban environment or in a rural environment?
Urban.
Just take this as
Okay, now before you even put the wall up, in an urban area, you put up the wall. Think of it this way. Are the people happy with it or not? Are you going to put up aesthetically, or are you going to just put up a wall there for safety and that, and it looks very bad? What are the people going to say? The businesses and that.
They won't be
Then
happy with them.
No, yes. Now you've answered your question yourself. Because you look at the business area, the culture there, in that business culture there. That's what we're talking about, culture. Don't think of it just in the rural area. In your business area, in your suburban areas, you've got certain cultures there. People would not like to have a terrible wall showing there, although it's safe, but it looks very bad. They won't like that. So that's what I'm talking about. If you've got a shop in front of you across the road and you have to look into this wall every day and you open windows, would you be happy about that? So that's what
No,
we're
if it's
talking
not
about, the
done right.
culture. Yes, that's what we're talking about, the culture. You go and look in your communities, you look at what is there to be done. Because if you're doing social, you understand what is social, it's combined, excuse me, with the culture of the area. Does it help you to understand what you say, what I'm saying now?
So
Yes, now I understand. So basically, it deals with the culture that you are building in, that community that you are working in per se.
Yes, because if you put it this way, you can go, for instance, to Hillbrow there. I know it's very dangerous, but then it's got a different type of culture, as if you were going up into the northern suburbs like Highlands North there in Johannesburg. Or if you go to Louis Botha Avenue in a different area, you understand each one has got its own culture.
Thank you
It's
very
what
much.
to do
Chris,
with
I
the
understand.
communities, what they want. Because when we're doing our designs and that's where the ethics comes in, we also take into consideration the social and the cultural cultural considerations in that. We're taking that into consideration.
So in other words, Chris, also in rural areas, there's you need to make sure that you don't go against the culture of the people when you are
Yes.
busy with a contract or a construction there. And for instance, when people have certain trees or something or places which are holy to them, you can't just go and do something that will violate that. So please keep it in mind and find out first whether the work you want to do is going to be acceptable to the community which you are doing it for. Although your boss might say to you, yeah, you must do this and this and this, first find out and make sure that there won't be very bad consequences for you and your boss if you are doing things that might be against the local culture. But Lwazi works
Thank
for
you,
your
sir.
friend, Chris.
Huh? Beg your pardon?
Lwazi works for your friend.
Who's that?
Lwazi, what's your company's name?
Remacon Products,
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Okay.
Silvio.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Sylvia. But it's fine. But you understand what I'm saying there in the culture. So you must adapt it to your environment that you're working on.
any case, Grant, I see
Thank
you've
you,
got a hand
Chris.
up. You
Okay,
wanted
it's a
to ask?
pleasure.
Where's Grant have disappeared to now?
He's still there, Grant Jeffers.
Excuse me.
Oh, there
Yes.
he
I
is.
was unmuted. Thank you
Okay.
for the presentation, guys. No, I just wanted to know, and is it if one is in a abeyance, is it possible that you can extend that period of abeyance with ECSA? And
Yes.
what does the abeyance mean for the candidate? Say for example, I think they asked another. I think you just said it, Chris. They were asked another 2 referees. So I'm in the position of being a referee for that person, but he only got I think he failed the 1 to 3 and the 9 to 10 outcomes. So me being a referee for that person, and he must write the whole engineering report. Do we only write the 1 to 3 and the 9 to 10 from the engineering support and submit it to ECSA? And will I only evaluate 1:3 and 9:10 for that person?
Okay. Preferably, what it is better, he writes his whole engineering report, but he can use the same as what he hasn't. But remember, outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10 are interlinked. I call that the design ones. So he must make sure that he knows what he's designing. Is it for technician, technologist, or engineer? Which section is he going in for? Grant?
It's for engineering technician, Chris.
Okay, engineering technician. So basically what he must do is he must make sure he has got the competency. It goes under there to the RO2, STA, the PEPT, PCE, PN. But he goes to the PN section and he must be honest about himself, evaluate himself on those questions. Has he got the competency? If he does not have it, he can write a letter to ECSA and asking for extension. They will give him extension of basically he can ask for 3 months if he's not competent, but he can do that. If he does not do that, they will cancel it, the buy-ins, and then he has to go through the whole process again and pay the money. At the moment, he doesn't have to pay anything to go again for the interview.
Oh,
Okay, then the supervisor just signs off his TER for the period when they said he has to go into abeyance till to the end of the abeyance. You do not sign off there. He does not need to get more referees because they were still standing. It just needs to show that he has that TER. He fills in that form for the period where he didn't work, and he also fills in his TES, his summary there, and his engineering report. And that's it. And he submits it to them with a copy of the letter that says these are the competencies he did not comply with. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Grant.
Gisela?
Thank you. Chris,
Yes.
I missed something during Loazi's response about the difference between social and cultural aspects. Can you please repeat that again?
Okay, social is that you got to ensure that you talk to the communities, you work with the communities. Now, social and cultural go hand in hand. Now, basically in social, you take in social considerations of the community, and then the cultural, you take into consideration what is there. In the rural, it will be different from each rural area. Now, if you're doing in business, in an urban area, it's also from one area to the other area, it's different. There might be areas that you do not go in, can be sacred areas, even in urban areas. You know, you can't just go and take off trees and take away without communicating with the people in the vicinity, in the community. So these are the things that you take into consideration with your design. Now, I want to tell you one thing too. If you do not understand it so nicely, and you haven't had that experience, that does happen, but one of your colleagues has experience in that. For instance, like your community liaison officer in your PLC or your your project steering committee and your community liaison officer, if they know about that, they can tell you, and you can write it down. And you can say in the reference there, my colleague explained this to me, and this is how it is put out. For if you're going to go and do a design in a rural area or you're going to work there. So you take that into consideration. You're allowed to do that. Sometimes it does happen, but what we want to find out when we're doing the interviews is not doing a cross-examination. If you do the job and you know what you're doing, we are looking there to see, are you competent? But the main thing that we were looking at is this your report yours? Your engineering report, your presentation, these documents, document the evidence or documents of evidence. Is this your work? Are you the person? Are you the author? And then we will ask you, and we will also ask you on your competency. If it's not your work, you got a problem. Then you will find out it gets very, very hairy, the interview. But if it's your work, you will be comfortable with it, and you will be explaining it that So basically it is to check, is this your report? Is this your work that you've done? And is it your competent? Are you competent to do the work as a professional? That's all what we want to find out. Because there are companies now at the moment that are putting out your engineering report. They're doing all these reports. When you come to the interview, you might know it off by heart, but there will be a curveball thrown into you. We will pick it up and we'll find out, but this isn't your report. Then there is a problem. Okay. Any other questions?
Hello.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Everyone?
Yes, I can hear you, Cabello.
Oh, okay. Okay, yes. I would like to speak about like two outcomes, that which is outcome like one and outcome number one. I would like to speak about like 1.3, right? And like I'll make an example of like a particular project that I'm working on, right? So outcome number 1.3, it says like describe how you performed or contributed in analyzing engineering problems using conceptualization, justified assumptions and limitations, and evaluation of results. Then outcome 2.2, it says like indicate how you systematically synthesize solutions, alternative solutions or approaches to the problem by analyzing designs against requirements, including cost and impacts on outside parameters. Okay, my problem with these two outcomes, I feel like based on the project that I'm working on, that I'm busy writing like the design report on, like I was designing like it was more of a routine maintenance, but it in the scope of works included like a design of like a bus bay for a rural road. So in terms of like principles of design for an urban and rural road of a bus bay, like the principles, they do change a little bit in terms of like the distances that it needs to be like from your intersection or a junction, right? So the client on this project, he did request that the bus bay for a rural road, it becomes like more closer to the intersection, as it will make like a life much easier for the community that's going to serve in that rural community. So the problem on that project was the site distance for the road, for the junction that's joining like the main road. So I would like to understand like how would I approach like this these two outcomes, where it says like by doing the analysis and everything, because like for me, like it sounds like a little bit like the same.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
You cut out a bit the last bit.
Oh, okay. Well, where did I cut so that I can clarify?
From the intersection to say, and that's it, and then you disappeared.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I was saying, like, the design geometrical, according to geometrical guideline for a bus stop on a rural road, it has to be like a certain meters, about like 100 meters away from the intersection to have like a clear sight distance. But the client requested that the bus stop, it should be like a bit closer to the intersection. So of which way I did like my analysis, I found like the sight distance, it wouldn't be clear for the vehicles that would be joining like the main road because of that bus bay. So I had to do an analysis and like move it like to a little bit further and justify to a client like why I'm moving it like to that point, and also like where it went against like the standard requirements, why I had to shift it a little bit like towards the inside, close to the fence. So I was asking, how would I approach like these two outcomes, 1.3 and 2.2? Because like to me, like they sound a bit the same, because like they say like the first one says describe how you performed or contributed in analyzing engineering problems. So I'll like simply just say like I did like how I analyze the problem. I did like a site distance analysis and check like my not going to have like a enough adequate like site distance for me like to be able like to live, to design, to model that bus stop there. And also the second one, 2.2, it says the indicate how you systematically synthesize solutions and alternative solutions or approaches to the problem by analyzing designs against requirements, of which is what I just said, that like the design was going against like the requirements of the geometric standard. Yes.
Now I get it what they, okay, listen nicely now quickly. What does outcome 1 say? It says define, investigate, analyze broadly defined engineering problem. You are now talking for, you want to register as a technologist, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, if you look at 1.1, define, hey?
Yes.
What does define mean? It says, what is the problem? Remember that, hey?
Yes.
Now, number 2 says investigate. Now, what that means is, hey, that is 1.2. Now, they use great words there, state how you performed and that. But investigate is data collection to do your design. 1.2, hey? Now,
Okay.
1.3, now you got your data, you 1.1, you've identified the problem. 1.2, you've collected your data. Now, you got all this data and all this information. What do you do with it? Originally, what you do is you actually make an assumption. Am I correct? With that data.
That's correct. Yes.
So you make your assumption, you said this is the distance, that is the distance, that is the standard distance, and you say it looks fine. Now we're coming to your other crux of a problem. Now you understand the 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Is that fine with you? You understand now what to do there?
I hear you vividly.
Okay, outcome 2 says, design or develop a solution of a broadly defined engineering problem. Okay, now 2.1, it says describe how you, now this is where you design. You take those assumptions and you take that information and you start putting it together. And you take that and you say you used the guidelines, you used what, and you went out of the guidelines. Now, 2.2 is where you're having a problem. Now I want to ask you, the first time you designed, was it correct?
The first time.
Yeah, that you designed the bus bay. It wasn't correct, hey?
Yes.
It didn't conform. So you did another design. So that's your second design maybe. But then you sit there and you say, ish, I'm going to say, what if I change this? Is it going to change something? Would I get better with my design or is it going to get worse? So you do more than one design always when you're designing. Am I right?
That's correct.
So basically what you do is you choose 3 and then you say, I chose this design. Why did you choose it? That's what I'll need to know from you. It can be due to costing, it could be due to practicality, or the client likes that third design, even if it costs more than all the other designs. It can be due to ethics, I mean, not ethics, aesthetics. It might look nicer. So this is what I'm saying, is that's where you get 2.2. So remember, if you're going to go and buy a car, first thing you decide, I need to buy a new car because mine is now a Skorokoro. Right?
Yeah.
So you go and decide you're going to buy a Golf, for instance. Everybody likes a Polo 1.4. They love it. And what they do with it is a bit dangerous on the roads, but we won't talk about that. Now, 1.2 is you collect all the information on the different Polos and different engines. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
1.3, you go there and you got all this information. You say, ish, I like the 1.6, but the 1.4, it's not so good. I like it. The specs are nice. Now you come to outcome 2. So you go to the garage and you say, 2.1, I would like to drive that Polo. You understand?
Yes.
You drive the 1.6. Hey, you find it's nice. But then you hear, hey, the petrol is expensive. You say, no, I'm going to go to the 1.4. You write it. You say, hey, but the power is low. But the 1.6 was also low. I'll go to the 1.8. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
This is how you do your designing.
Yes.
So that's what you do. Does it explain to you a lot now what you have to do now?
No, it does, because like I feel like my problem was like I wanted to put like everything all in one outcome. Like if like you make an example of a polo, like right now go to the shop, I say like to the dealership, I say like I want like polo 1.4 because it's very economical. I listed everything under one outcome. Hence I was saying like I feel like when I went to other outcomes, I feel like they sound like it's a repetitive of everything that I've already said before.
Yes, you see, this is what I pick up with a lot of the people, the applicants, they do. They don't read exactly. You just answer what is there, and it helps you a lot. And that's where you're getting your information. So please think of it that, maybe I use the polo as an example, but it seems to giving you now idea what is going on there.
Yes, no, thank you very much.
That's a pleasure. So hopefully it helps you, and we'll be seeing you most probably on the other side of the table one day. Eh?
I know, in 2 months' time.
Okay, that's great.
Thanks.
Okay, pleasure.
Tom, are you? Would you like to add something there? You're more into transport and sighting distance and things. Those are your forte. Would you like to answer something there?
Yeah, look, I think between Chris and Johan, they have covered all the things. I think at the end of the day, when you're dealing with ethics and making decisions, you must ensure that your decision making is based on valid principles. And then I think the areas start to get gray when you start moving between why is this problem more complicated than the next problem. But if you say design a horizontal and vertical alignment, I would say that's well defined. If the designer has to go in and sort out geotechnical related issues or moist, damp areas, low-lying areas, and sort accesses out and expropriation, it moves into broadly defined. And if you do, like Chris or Johan mentioned, dump a graveyard in a way that you've got to deal with all the issues of relocating, exhuming bodies and relocating bodies, particularly if it's a customary graveyard, then that brings you in a whole new minefield of ethics and related things. So I think at the end of the day, Chris's best message, in my view, is don't try to bullshit ECSA. There is no category F, which is fraud. You've got to get up to E in the different outcomes, and there is no F for fabricating evidence. And at the end of the day, if you didn't do it, don't write about it. I think that's the best advice I can give.
Sorry.
Well, Tom, I think that was well said. Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed
I won't say it because then they say I'm actually unprofessional.
Anyway, Maxwell, you have a question.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Chris, Johan.
Yes,
Yes, I wanted to check with regards to the size of my report, the 50-page limit, and I see I'm already on 64 now. I think it's because of the experience period from the time I graduated, where there's quite a couple of TOs. I think I've got about 5 and 3 TRs, so it's already taking me to 64, which I feel maybe is way beyond the limit of the 50. I don't know, what could you advise, probably how I can structure it to reduce?
Edit it down.
All right, let me tell you one thing there. Your TERs that you're writing, are they very long-winded ones or not? How many pages are they?
On the TRs, Chris, I think I'm getting per each TR, I think I have probably 4 pages.
Okay, try and get it smaller. Learn to write in bullet form.
Okay.
Basically what we want to see is it's in bullet form. You write the important issues there. You know, if you say you did OHS, you know, Act, you were looking after, you know, you were doing, applying the OHS. Don't say you were applying the OHS and seeing that everybody's wearing the PPE and the boots and the hats and that. No, you just say, I was applying the OHS, ensuring everything is safe. That's it. That's the end of the story. If you were doing payment certificates, you don't say, I was doing interim payment certificates and making sure that everything was right. You say, interim payment certificates were certified by me and quantities. End of story. You don't tell them everything. So you shorten it into bullet form and give the crux of the issues there. Then when it comes to your engineering report, how many projects are you talking about there?
I got it from the previous presentations you did initially when I unsuccessfully registered before. I think I'd mixed up like outcome 1, outcome 2. So what I've done is I've restructured it, and the engineering report looks quite good, whereby I'm only talking of 2 projects on the engineering
your
report.
Outcome 1 and 2.
On outcome 1 and 2, I'm basically reporting on 1 project.
Okay, remember outcome 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10. Talk of the same project. Okay. 1.
Okay.
Then all the other outcomes, you can talk about different projects, but don't talk, if you talk about project management, don't talk about all the projects. You just talk about 1 project there, anyone.
Okay.
On the ethics, 1. You understand?
Yes.
Don't go and talk long-winded. For instance, the one is there, 8.1 says to you, confirm. Now, what does confirm mean? It's yes or no. You say, yes, I confirm. Of what you call operate in the ECSA's code of conduct. That's it. You don't have to write 10 pages. Make sure that you try and keep to the words that are there on each outcome, which we give the limit. You can go a bit over. Then when you put in your annexures, don't go and put in major calculations and all that. You just show maybe 1 page of your there of a site instruction you've done, 1 page of your correspondence, 1 page of your calculations, and a drawing. That's it. You don't go and show the full design, because to be honest, we do this on a voluntary basis. And as everybody thinks, oh, yeah, voluntary, you get paid. We get paid as stipends. And I can tell you one thing, if you do your report, your assessment report of a project, of a applicant, just the assessment, that's your first stage, we spend 2 to 3 hours. And the money we get, you can't even buy yourself breakfast with it. But we do it for the love. So remember, try and take that into consideration for us. We have to go through all that material. If you make a long-winded reporting and that, we tend to get very tired, because we don't do just one. We do a full day's job. We do this in our free time. We do it because we like to help the industry. So remember, take that into consideration. So I think when you'll go back now, you will look at it and you will most probably reduce a lot of the issues there. Am I right, Maxwell?
Thank you so much, Chris. I think I know where I can cut it. What is the maximum that I don't get penalized with if I exceed, say,
we
50,
don't penalize, but you actually penalize yourself.
Okay.
Because what I say is, it's usually 50 pages. You can push it to about 55, but not more than that.
Okay, I think that's quite clear, Chris. Thanks so much. I think I've understood. I know where to cut off some flesh.
Okay, Maxwell. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Chris. Keep well.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Remember to keep to the other guidelines. Don't think because you're now going to do 50 pages, you can now go to a small font and add more words. Look at the word, the number of words required and things like that. Don't try and be funny and go to a small font and think that you're going to get away with that. You're going to be penalized for that if you don't follow the guidelines there. Okay.
Have they really done that?
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, Johan.
No, I can tell you basically we don't penalize you, but you know, when the assessors go through that, they're very tired and they got the 65 pages, then they say, oh, wat het hierdie ou aangevang? What is this? And then it gets so big that, you know, in the end, you don't remember what the guy wrote. And then you have to go in for unnecessary interviews, and those guys, they go through, they say, Eish! And they all shake their heads. You understand? So try and economize, bullet form, right to the point, and keep to the words and numbering that they said there in your report. I think it's 5,000 words, I think, on the engineering, or 2,000 words on the engineering report. It's all limited. Everything is limited. You can go a bit over, but please don't go and write your whole life's history and write a novel. Then it's just going to get very, very difficult for us to assess.
Thank you, Chris. Loud and clear.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jacela, you're muted.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to ask, is the interview compulsory?
Yes, unluckily that is. Well, I see you don't want to go for the interview.
Obviously, yes.
All right, let me give you a hint, and everybody can take a listen to this. When you go for the interview, I know it's stressful, but go into the interview with this mindset. I'm going to go and talk to my colleagues around the table, and I'm going to explain my design to them, and they're going to ask me questions. Because when you go and have your coffee break or your lunch break, you and your colleagues, you sit around the table and you talk about projects. Am I correct?
Yes.
And then what they do is, when you explain the project, they will tell you, while you explain, they will ask you a question, but did you think about that? Am I right?
They'll always criticize.
No, not criticize. They say, did you think about that? Or why did you do that? Then you explain. So think of your interview the same. You do a presentation, and then the assessor, I mean the reviewers and the professional review, or in experience interview, they will ask you questions about that. So think of it in that mindset and you will be relaxed.
Now look, at another way to overcome that is to prepare. Stand in front of the mirror, do a presentation to yourself, do it to your friends if you want to. Do it to the extent that you become comfortable with it. It's the only way you're going to kill those nerves to a large extent. So practice. Look at the questions, let other people ask you questions. And when you're in a forum like this, talk up. When you start addressing and talking and overcoming that fear, it's the quickest way you address it. Face your fears and do it. And you'll see that it will help you a hell of a lot.
Also, remember that the guys who are interviewing you, they are your peers. What is a peer? A peer is a guy who's at the same level as you are. You're applying to become a professional technologist. You will be interviewed by professional technologists. They're not some super people. They're ordinary people like you and me and everybody else who's been employed by ECSA or asked by ECSA to do the interviews. They're not some know-all people, and they don't have an attitude of that they know everything and you know nothing. They would just like to make sure that you are registrable, that you've done what you say you've done, and that you know what you're doing. That's all. If you know what you're doing, you don't have anything to fear. If you have written your own report, then obviously you know what you've written there and you know how you approached the problems in practice. If someone else has written your report, then you've got problems, because then you don't know what you're talking about. So make sure that you practice properly, and as Chris usually says, let your enemies look at your report to see, because they will criticize you. Your friends will say, "No, that's nice," because they don't want to offend you. But talk to someone who you know will be critical of your report, and will tell you where the shortcomings are. So you can't prepare too much. This is an important thing for you. It is, but as I said, your assessors are not guys with doctorates and things like that who are know-alls. They are people like you who work in industry and who know what is going on in industry. So you can't tell them things that are not true, but they will find that out. But they are ordinary people like you and me. Wazi, you've got something to ask again. So Gisela, does that answer your question?
Yes, John, it does. But it brings me to the next question to say, how do you really structure the presentation?
I'll answer that quickly. You structure it on all your 11 outcomes. Okay. So you take a project and you can show it. You've got 15 minutes and you show your outcomes that it does structure. You do very short on your experience, 2 minutes, and the rest you spend on your time with your presentation on your 11 outcomes on the project. You can show photos, but limit it to 15 minutes. You can push it to 20 minutes and that's it. Don't go over it.
So do one outcome per minute. Don't spend more than a minute on each outcome. Just show in short that what you've done and how you satisfy that outcome in very short. Don't try and explain everything in the finest detail. Just explain it so that people can see that you know what you're talking about, that you've been there. Don't go to too much detail. Okay, thanks. Okay, Lwazi, you wanted to ask?
Before Lwazi comes in, I see Kobella asked, is it necessary to have annexures when submitting my report, or can I show all the annexures during the interview? No, you submit it with your report, but just make sure, as I said, show 1 or 2 examples, like an example of your site instruction, an example of your correspondence, example of a calculation, and one of your drawings example. Don't show the whole issue there. But you can also, during your interview, if you want to discuss a design, you can show that also, but preferably do it in your report. Okay. And the next person, Lwazi, can come in.
I see Thomas left.
No, he's left. He said he had to go. I must also get going just now. But Lwazi, come in.
It's a quick one, a short one. Where can I get the recordings? Because I've looked sometimes on the website and I couldn't find them. Maybe it's me not understanding the website, because I've seen where to register with iPad and all of those things, but I just wanted to know where I can also be able to get the recording.
Right. When you register on that website on Professional CPD, you don't pay anything. Just register there on professionalcpd.co.za. It's not www. It's just professionalcpd.co.za. It's shown on the screen now. Do you see that there?
Yes.
It's just professionalcpd.co.za. You register there and it's for free. You can download it then. Okay.
Thank you.
And I see some people have put it also on YouTube. You can say iPad YouTube, and then some of them will come up also. Apparently, I'm a YouTube, what you call actor or artist or whatever they call them. All right. Does that help you, Lwazi?
Thank you very much. It does help me.
Okay.
It's called a YouTuber. Chris, you're a
Yeah, I don't know.
YouTuber.
If I get a few million, I can start retiring, and then they can pay me for
Yes,
it. Eh?
you can.
Followers.
Yeah.
Please, you guys, get your friends to do that. I can at least get some money for myself. All right.
You need to like and follow.
Yes.
And subscribe.
Okay,
Yeah,
guys.
okay.
If there's no more questions, we would like to also go and prepare dinner. But if there's another question or two, we can take, but not many more. There was a question about when are we going to do the alternate route? One that we said we were going to do last week. We will be doing it, Chris, whenever you're available. We'll arrange it maybe next week or the week after.
Yeah, I'm actually running around all over the countryside now at the moment. So I try and come in, but I'll do, I'll put up the presentation there, and if I don't present it, I think Johan will present it, but I will see if I can come in also like today, because I am running around all over the country. I'm working the whole of South Africa, it looks like now at the moment, because it looks like in a week or two time I'm either in KwaZulu-Natal or in Burgersfort. I take each day on its own. At the moment I'm in the Southern Free State on the border of the Northern Cape for the while.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. Johan, thanks a lot for your presentation. Chris, for your answers. Everybody who attended, everybody who contributed, thanks for being here. And those guys who didn't ask any questions, I hope that some of your questions were also answered and that you've learned a lot. We, from the Institute of Professional Engineering Technologists, we bring this to you. Please go and become members of the family of professional engineering technologists, You don't need to be a professional to join. It's free to join. And even if you're a student, you're welcome to join as a student or as a graduate or an associate. And if you're registered, obviously, as a professional. And remember, as a professional, well, even if you're a graduate, if you're registered with ECSA as a candidate or a professional, you get a discount because you're a member of a voluntary association like IPET. And the IPET discount, the ECSA discount is more than the IPET membership fee. So it's actually paying you to become an IPET member and be part of the IPET family. Thank you, guys, and see you hopefully in a week or two, and have a nice evening and travel safely.